the most anticipated earnings releases for the week of March 3rd, 2025. Presented by earningswhispers. Earnings season slows down this week, and for the most part is over. But there are still 300 companies scheduled to report during the week. For the most part, the story this week is about support. Well, except for Sunnova Energy. Like most anything having to do with solar, there appears to be no signs of support, and they just keep trending lower. Of course, there is the natural support level of 0, and sadly, some of these names might need to get there before the others can start trending higher again. Part of the reason solar might be struggling is because AI data centers need more power. More than we can currently get from solar, and that is creating demand for nuclear. NuScale Power reports after the close on Monday, and while I'm not sure you can say it has support, the secular trends should help it find support soon. Support lines aren't meant to be exact, so while CrowdStrike may have failed on its attempt to break above 400, it has pulled back to hold its earnings-anchored VWAP, and this is still an area of support. Meanwhile, the fundamental trends remain positive. Credo Technology is another young company with ties to the secular growth story of AI data centers, and after gapping higher on earnings last quarter, it has rolled over to fill that gap going into earnings this quarter. For now, that gap fill means support, but there are still sellers overhead. Last week, we heard that NVIDIA had some supply chain issues and weak margins as it ramped Blackwell production. This week, we are going to get the two biggest names that might be an alternative to NVIDIA as the hyperscalers add money to custom silicon. Marvell Technology is first on this list, reporting after the close on Wednesday. It too has rolled over to fill last quarter's earnings gap, and then some. It likely has support somewhere around $80 or below, so a sell-off after earnings might present a buying opportunity. Rigetti Computing has suddenly made it on our list of the most anticipated earnings releases, which may not surprise you considering the stock was up 1,400% at one point during the quarter. So what stands out is the fact that before that move, the stock only averaged a 10% move on earnings, and option traders this time around are still just pricing in a 17% move. The name people care about the most this week is Broadcom, which is the other company benefiting from demand for custom silicon. Expectations are for positive results, but while it too has rolled over of late, it still hasn't filled its earnings gap from last quarter. That isn't a bearish sign, but it also doesn't make for a great entry. Also on Thursday is BigBear.ai. It is a Palantir wannabe, and the stock was on a tear during the quarter, going from below $2 to above $10. It gave half of it back when the market realized that government spending cuts put the growth at risk for the company. In the long run, though, that's probably not going to happen because AI is primarily about efficiency. In the near term, however, there is a small shelf of support at $5. We finally get a slower Friday, and the one with the most significance is Genesco. After a few years of weakness, the company has started to put together a string of positive results, and the stock made a breakout ahead of earnings last quarter. Now, it is rolling over to potentially retest that level. It has a relatively high bar to hurdle this quarter, but for now, the trends are positive. Most of the names reporting this week are smaller companies. There are only about a dozen S&P 500 companies, and about half are in the Russell 2000. That means another half are even smaller. That makes for volatility. Meanwhile, AST Space Mobile has had some large moves on earnings over the past year and a half, averaging a 32% move. That volatility appears to be coming down, based on how option traders are betting ahead of earnings, and with the stock sitting right in its price of control over the past year. Finally, looking out over the next month, we are getting a pretty good look at the calendar. One name missing is Oracle, but they will tell us early this week when they will report, and that date will probably be sometime next week.
Shh.